Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. The Hidden Tribe, Super Athletes, and the Greatest Race the World Has Never Seen. What's it about? Born to Run, 2009, delves into the human capacity for long-distance running. First-hand accounts, an encounter with a secretive ultra-running tribe, and cutting-edge research combine to argue for the idea that we may well be born to run. Introduction. What's in it for me? Run toward your body's true calling. How come my foot hurts? The search for an answer to this unassuming question took journalist Christopher McDougall on an adventure to track down Mexico's indigenous Tarahumara people, known as the world's greatest distance runners. Many Tarahumara can run hundreds of miles without resting, are the picture of health, and possess an uncanny serenity. Along his way to discover their Herculean secrets and explore the limits of human endurance, including his own, Chris encountered a trove of astonishing characters, athletic virtuosity, and scientific insights. This book will dispel any myths you may believe about the human body's capabilities, and they might just inspire you to do what you were born to do: run. In this summary, you'll learn why dogs can't run marathons, what plants have to do with performance, and why no running shoes are the best running shoes. Chapter 1. Running unites our two most primal impulses, fear and pleasure. Distance running has shot up 3 times in the U.S. The first time was during the Great Depression, when more than 200 runners raced 40 miles a day in the Great American Foot Race. Running became popular again in the early 1970s as the country struggled to recoup from wars, race riots, and a criminal president. And the third surge happened 1 year after the September 11 attacks, when trail running became the nation's fastest-growing outdoor sport. As trends would have it, in fact, we're experiencing another running boom now, during the COVID pandemic. And it's not just because gyms are closed. Maybe it was a coincidence that people turned to running during a national crisis. Or maybe there's a trigger in the human psyche that mobilizes our greatest, most basic survival skill at such times. We run when we're scared, and we run when we're happy. We run to relieve stress, and because it feels good. The key message here is, running unites our two most primal impulses, fear and pleasure. The problem was, running didn't feel good to Chris, an otherwise athletic guy in his 40s. Since trying to become a marathoner, he'd experienced multiple injuries, including ripped hamstrings, sprained ankles, and arch aches that just wouldn't go away. According to his doctor, his body wasn't designed for running's abuse. Actually, many medical professionals cite risk of injury as a reason not to run. And they're not wrong. Every year, anywhere from 65 to 80% of all runners suffer an injury. That's most runners, every year. No invention has been able to curb the havoc. If anything, the injury rate has actually increased. According to the American Association of Orthopedic Surgeons, distance running is an outrageous threat to the integrity of the knee. But Chris had a hunch that there was a way to run without the accompanying pain, and to really enjoy it. He remembered the elation of running around at top speed as a kid, with total abandon and delight. And how did someone like ultrarunner Trazen think that running huge distances in the mountains was very romantic? What made the legendary Emil Satopek love running so much that, after a full day of drills in Army boot camp, he'd grab a flashlight and go on 20-mile runs through the dark and freezing woods in his combat boots? Chris didn't love running, but he wanted to. So instead of heeding his doctor's advice to buy a bike, he set out to find a way to run, pain-free. His quest would lead him to a secretive Mexican tribe whose members seemed to be able to run forever, smiling every step of the way. Chapter 2. Members of the Tarahumara tribe see running as part of their identity. Many adventurers enter the copper canyons of northern Mexico, but not all exit. The area is known as the Bermuda Triangle of the borderlands. The Tarahumara fled into the canyons 400 years ago to escape the abuse of Spanish colonizers, and their settlements have been well hidden and widely dispersed since. To travel to these quickly on foot, Tarahumara have developed an extraordinary athletic ability. Tarahumara call themselves Raramori, which roughly translates to the running people, and the name is no joke. They've been reported to run 300 miles in a single session. That's nearly 12 full marathons in a row. Not only that, but they have far fewer rates of injuries that plague other runners worldwide. So what's their secret? With their mindset and culture based on the belief that running is an indispensable human skill, they've made it hard to be a part of the Tarahumara and not enjoy running. It's seen as an ancestral necessity that makes them who they are as a people. Here's the key message. Members of the Tarahumara tribe see running as part of their identity. A game called Raraji Pari is at the heart of Tarahumara running culture. To play, two villages first get together, chug beer, and spend the night making bets on which village will win a race. Come sunrise, the teams face each other, with 3 to 8 runners on each side. Then they take off, racing back and forth over a long trail, advancing a ball like soccer players sprinting toward a goal. The races can go on for up to 48 hours, but the runners can't ever zone out. The ball is constantly ricocheting around, and with so many runners, everyone has to stay alert. According to the Tarahumara, Raraji Pari is the game of life. You never know how hard it will be. You never know when it will end. You can't control it. You can only adjust. Enduring that kind of challenge requires strength, dedication, cooperation, patience, and persistence. Most of all, you have to love to run. It might be taking things too far to say the capacity to love running and the capacity to love are the same, but they're definitely connected. Both depend on loosening your grip on your own desires, appreciating what you have, and being patient and forgiving. Those are virtues the Tarahumara have perfected, and toward which we can all strive. The physical side of things is a little simpler. Running skills aren't limited only to the Tarahumara, they're available to nearly all humans. Chapter 3. The human body is evolutionarily well adapted to long-distance running. If you can run 6 miles on a hot day, you're a dangerous weapon in the animal kingdom. You just need to scare an animal into a gallop. Then, if you can stay close enough for it to see you, it will keep sprinting away. Soon, it will go into hyperthermic shock and drop to the ground. This is, for example, how the San people of southern Africa track antelopes in the Kalahari Desert. That's not to say you should track down your next meal via persistence hunting, but it does lend a clue to human evolution. The key message is this. The human body is evolutionarily well adapted to long-distance running. When a 4-legged animal wants to go fast, it starts to gallop. Though it's quicker than walking or trotting, galloping restricts the animal's breathing rate by compressing the lungs. As a result, an animal can only take 1 breath per stride. This works fine until it reaches the critical limit at which it heats up faster than it can cool down. That's because most mammals can only release body heat through breathing. They literally have to stop running in order to survive. Humans, on the other hand, can sweat. This superpower allows us to dissipate heat more rapidly, which enables us to run in conditions like no other. And because the human breath cycle is not determined by our need to cool down, we can breathe more efficiently and maintain endurance. We're also master long-distance runners because we move on 2 legs instead of 4. When early humans began to walk upright, freeing their hands to use tools and reach higher hanging fruit, it allowed their throats to open and chests to expand. Though this development came at the expense of speed, it increased air capacity and enabled them to endure longer distances. The final zinger is our Achilles tendon. When this unique, flexible cord of collagen tissue in our lower leg is stretched, it stores energy until it's ready to be released. The leg then propels the body forward, which maximizes our endurance because it takes us less energy to spring from one step to the next. Humans aren't only really good at endurance running, we stay good for a long time. A study comparing New York City marathon finishing times found that, starting at age 19, runners get faster every year until they hit their peak at 27. They then decline in speed, matching that 19-year-old pace again at age 64. That's right. Grandparents can outrun teenagers. Running is how we survived and grew as a species. We ran to feed and to avoid being fed upon, to find and impress a mate. Our ancestors had to love running, or they risked not living to love anything else. We're all running people, which has always been obvious to the Tarahumara. But wait, you may be thinking, if we're all born to run, then why do so many people hate running? Chapter 4. To become a better long-distance runner, befriend pain and fatigue. A man who called himself Caballo Blanco, or White Horse, showed up in the Tarahumara Mountains one day. Caballo was a former boxer from California who wanted to find peace. He was sick of the prize fighting, sick of the performing, and sick of heartbreak. He began modeling his lifestyle after that of the Tarahumara, wearing sandals and eating pinole, or ground corn. And of course, he ran soon, tackling trails that were steeper and more winding than a black diamond ski slope. He had a few tumbles and had to drag himself back to his hut at times, but he chose to see everything as an investment, claiming that suffering is humbling. It pays to know how to get your butt kicked. After a few years in the canyons, Caballo was healthier and happier than ever. The key message here is to become a better long-distance runner, befriend pain and fatigue. As both philosophers and geneticists would agree, the only way to truly conquer something is to love it. This is easier said than done. Unlike any other creature in history, humans have a mind-body conflict. Our body is built for performance, but our brain is always seeking out efficiency. That's why we see extreme exercise as crazy. Our brain tells us that unnecessary exertion is absurd. Once we've made running a habit, it feels good. But lose the habit, and our ancient survival instinct urges us to stop. Also, we often approach running as a miserable means to an end, a way to become skinnier, faster, or richer. No wonder so many people hate it. But a get-it-over-with mentality won't get you through a long run. You have to relax into it. If you can do this, your body will become familiar with the loping rhythm, and you'll almost forget you're moving. By listening to your breath and becoming aware of how much you're sweating, you'll learn when to push harder and when to back off. You'll be able to tune into how you feel at any moment and might actually find yourself enjoying the various sensations. By the time Caballo and Chris met on Tarahumara terrain, Caballo had been ruminating on an idea for a while. What if he set up a race the Tarahumara way, focused on the joy of running? He'd bring the best ultrarunners from the United States to the Copper Canyons to face off against the Tarahumara. It would be a week of studying each other's styles and techniques, culminating in an epic 50-mile showdown. At some point, Chris realized he was part of the plan. He'd mentioned that he was a magazine columnist, which had piqued Caballo's interest. Maybe an article about his race would actually attract some racers. For his part, Chris had gotten a taste of what running could feel like. He'd gone out on a few canyon trails with Caballo, and he wanted more. He asked if he could join the race. Who else was Caballo inviting? For one, Arnold Folkwe Murray, the most revered Tarahumara runner, and Scott Jurek, an ultramarathoner from the US who'd been smashing records and gracing magazine covers for years. Chapter 5. To run faster and longer. Become a vegetarian. As he got ready to hike out of the Tarahumara Canyon, Chris found himself staring into a cup full of a gooey slime flecked with black bubbles. "Great," he said, looking for a cactus to discreetly dump it behind. "What is it?" The scum-like substance, which turned out to be pretty tasty, was isquiat, also known as chili chia, concocted by dissolving chia seeds in water with a little sugar and lime. It's a nutritional powerhouse. The tiny seeds are packed with omega-3s, antioxidants, iron, zinc, fiber, calcium, and protein. The Tarahumara's diet is simple. Along with chia seeds, they mostly eat beans, squash, chilies, greens, pinole, and wild geranium. The anti-everything, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antibacterial, antioxidant. Aside from the occasional barbecued mouse, their nourishment clearly lacks a star of the standard American diet, aka SAT, meat. Here's the key message. To run faster and longer. Become a vegetarian. Scott Jurek was the top ultrarunner in the US, maybe in the world. Seemingly invincible, he'd once won a 135-mile race across Death Valley in the middle of summer. Naturally, Caballo thought that if anyone could beat the Tarahumara runners, it would be him. As a corporate-sponsored athlete, Scott had the world of cutting-edge nutrition at his disposal. But after trying everything from deer meat to McDonald's to organic rhubars, he'd landed on a vegan diet similar to that of the Tarahumara. For his long runs, he replaced Snickers with homemade snacks like rice burritos and hummus-stuffed pitas. When he sprained his ankle, he consumed wolfsbane and monster portions of garlic and ginger instead of ibuprofen. And despite being told that he wouldn't recover from workouts and would be more susceptible to injuries on his new diet, Scott proved his doubters wrong and performed better than ever. He was onto something. Some of history's greatest endurance athletes were vegetarians. Certain Japanese monks, for instance, who ran ultramarathons every day for 7 years, subsisted on just miso soup, tofu, and vegetables. Percy Cerruti, coach to some of the greatest runners of all time, often pushed his clients through triple sessions fueled by oats, fruits, cheeses, and nuts. And in 1983, the 63-year-old farmer named Cliff Young beat Australia's best ultrarunners in a 507-mile race on a diet of beans, beer, and oatmeal. He couldn't bear to eat the cows he so lovingly raised. Scott didn't know why meatless diets worked so well, but he decided to trust the results first and deal with the science later. And it turns out, the science is simple. Fruits, vegetables, and whole grains provide maximum nutrition from the fewest calories. As a result, your body doesn't have to carry and process any additional bulk. You also digest carbohydrates a lot faster than proteins, which leaves you more time to train. Chapter 6. Running shoes actually do more harm than good. Meanwhile, Barefoot Ted, another contender for Caballo's race, was waging a personal vendetta against the running shoe, otherwise known as the worst crime ever perpetrated against the human foot. After trying shoe after fancy shoe, Ted McDougall had resorted to running barefoot in a last-ditch effort to eliminate the piercing pains in his back. On his first barefoot run, Ted went 5 miles and felt nothing. "I was totally amazed at how enjoyable it was," he mused. He amped up his mileage, and within months, had transformed himself into a speedy barefoot marathoner. Amazed by his new talent, Ted kept pushing further. He signed up for 100-mile endurance runs, strapping on rubber foot gloves whenever he hit gravel or glass. He ran the Los Angeles Marathon in his bare feet and qualified for the Boston Marathon, something 99.9% of all runners never achieve. Now, he was coming to race with the Tarahumara to see whether the key to their resilience was their nearly bare feet. The key message is this: running shoes actually do more harm than good. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. For years, sports brands like Nike have been pushing a more cushioning is more mantra. But running shoes actually stabilize the foot too well. And studies have shown that a higher price tag correlates to more pain. Runners wearing expensive shoes are 123% more prone to injury than runners in cheap, flat-soled shoes. Why? Well, when you run, your foot rolls inward in a process called pronation that acts as a built-in shock absorber for the lower leg. Pronation has been demonized for causing runners' knee, so there are now a fleet of pronation-alleviating shoes on the market. But a mere 3% of the population has a real medical need for special shoes. For most people, encasing the foot in a shoe is like having a plaster cast on the leg. The shoe limits the foot's full movement, no longer able to flex, splay, and grip the ground's surface, which naturally reduces pronation and distributes pressure. The foot's muscles atrophy and tendons stiffen. The resulting imbalances throughout the body put excessive strain on certain muscles and joints, leading to injury. Running shoes also mask the discomfort caused by harmful impact. Through the thick cushioning, you can't feel the painful shock waves that reverberate through your body as you pound the pavement. This prevents you from adopting better running form. Going barefoot, on the other hand, gives you a constant stream of information about the ground and your relationship to it, forcing you to adapt to a natural and ultimately healthier gait. So save your money and your body by opting for a cheap pair of kicks and try running barefoot on grass a few times per week to strengthen your feet. Nike, for its part, found a way to capitalize on the overwhelming evidence. The slogan for its slipper-like Nike free shoe: "Run barefoot." Chapter 7. Running can be a powerful form of meditation. Fast forward 9 months, and race day was just around the corner. Chris and the American Racing Group had met up in El Paso, Texas, including Jen Shelton, a young poet, and her surfer boyfriend, Billy Barnett. These two were known for their hard partying almost as much as for winning ultramarathons across the East Coast. The plan was to drive into Mexico together the next day, but all night Jen and Billy had terrorized the hotel in drunken debauchery. Jen had acquired a shiner by running face first into a marble fountain, and Billy had spewed pink vomit all over Chris's room. Whether they'd be fit to run in the grueling canyons the next day was doubtful. But by morning, the group was zooming toward the Mexican border. Hungover Jen pressed her face against the cool window. "The menu gets me a Mountain Dew, can have my body." And Billy's, if their partying were any indication of their racing, The Tarahumara didn't have a chance. The key message here is, running can be a powerful form of meditation. For the party kids, joining Caballo's race had been a no-brainer. A couple of years earlier, Jen and Billy had been surfers in Virginia Beach, working as lifeguards and studying part-time. But one day, Billy had an epiphany. Living on the edge wasn't about danger. It was about curiosity. So they traded in the waves for mountains, specifically a 50-mile race called the Mountain Masochist. Neither of them had even run a marathon before, and they'd barely seen a mountain. To prepare, they memorized Jack Kerouac. Try the meditation of the trail. Just walk along looking at the trail at your feet, and don't look about, and just fall into a trance as the ground zips by. On their sunset runs, they'd listen to Allen Ginsberg read Howl and shout, "New loves, mad generation, down on the rocks of time." As they went along, at a 100-mile race a few months later, Jen was struggling. Billy joined her at the 75-mile mark, coaxing her through the woods, and as she completed 1 mile and then another, elation replaced despair. She felt free in the beautiful wilderness. By 10:30 p.m., Jen and Billy had passed all the runners except one. Jen became the fastest woman ever to run the course, breaking the old record by 3 hours. Her 17.34 record still stands. 5 days later, she ran a marathon in under 3 hours while wearing a bikini and downing a beer at mile 23. The national rankings put Jen as one of the top 3 100-mile runners in the U.S. Soon, she'd set a world best, her 14.57 time at the Rocky Raccoon 100. Jen started running ultras to become a better person. When she's on a long run, her brain quiets down, and it's just her and the movement. She thought if she could run 100 miles, she'd become Buddha-like. It didn't exactly work in her case. I'm the same old pink ass as before, but she still thinks it can turn you into someone better and more peaceful. Chapter 8. Training like the Tarahumara will transform your body and mind. Finally, the day of the epic race had arrived. At 5:00 a.m., the runners feasted on pancakes, papayas, and hot pinole. As they walked toward the starting line, the entire town greeted them. Flowers and paper streamers waved above the street, and a mariachi band in full costume strummed a few warm-up melodies. The night before, Caballo had made them swear an oath. "If I get hurt, lost, or die, it's my own damn fault. Amen." The 50-mile trail had a climb and descent of 6,500 feet along a sheer rock wall, and it was going to get hot. But it was too late to turn back. The mayor was already aiming a shotgun at the sky. Boom! With hoots and howls, Scott, Jen, and Caballo shot off first with the Tarahumara. Here's the key message. Training like the Tarahumara will transform your body and mind. Just beat the course, Chris told himself. He'd been preparing for the race with Tarahumara-style training. He'd become a breakfast salad convert and ran in flat-soled shoes. He'd done strength drills of lunges, jump squats, push-ups, and crunches, followed by hill climbs, which improved both speed and posture. The results were impressive. Chris was now 25 pounds lighter and gliding along a trail that had demolished him before. Best of all, there hadn't been an injury in sight. In short, he'd embodied all of the Tarahumara's secret weapons. He was stronger, eating lighter, and injury-free, so he'd been able to run more. Because he'd been running more, he was sleeping better and felt more relaxed. He was happier overall, and he'd learned to love running. By the 42-mile mark, Scott was behind Arnulfo, and Jen was closing the gap. Caballo, who'd circled back to the finish line to see the ultimate action, was on the edge of his seat. Arnulfo's dark hair and red shirt shot through a dust cloud, but Scott was inching up fast. Cheers and screams drowned out the mariachi band as they sped toward the finish line. It was uncanny the way their running form matched, lithe and graceful. They were also both grinning from ear to ear. When Arnulfo snapped through the tape, the crowd engulfed him. Scott crossed the line soon after, walked up to Arnulfo, and bowed. In the midst of the chaos, 3 more Tarahumara crossed the finish. Meanwhile, Jen and Billy were preparing for the final stretch. "Ready?" Billy asked. "You're toast, dude." Together, they sailed down the hill. Barefoot Ted trailed in later, and finally, Chris rocked up to the finish line. It had been 12 hours since he'd started. That meant Arnold Foe and Scott could have run the course over again and still beaten him. Caballo, who joined him during the last stretch, now sat alone under a tree smiling, sipping a beer, and surveying the scene. A crazy dream that had materialized into the experience of a lifetime. Final summary. Far from being the hopelessly bad runners we're made out to be. Cough, Nike. Humans actually possess a host of innate traits that make us excellent at running long distances. To unleash your inner runner, the best thing you can do is make sure you don't hinder these inherent gifts. That means taking care of your body through plant-based nutrition, ditching your high-tech shoes, and tuning into the natural joy of running. Actionable advice. Run like a kindergartner. World-class Kenyan athletes don't just run barefoot. They actually run as children do, moving their legs in smaller contractions to enable quicker foot turnover. This technique increases efficiency and fosters endurance. To hone this form, try matching your pace to a tempo of 180 beats per minute with either a heart rate monitor or a banging playlist. And stay below the aerobic threshold, the point at which you begin breathing heavily. This will help you use your fat stores instead of burning through sugar reserves and keep you running longer. Note that the change should feel awkward at first. You're not only adapting your skills, but muscles that have been dormant your whole life.